Good evening, I hope you're well. My name's Charlie and I get the pleasure of leading the youth ministry for our Northampton location for Central Vineyard. Today we're going to be diving right in and we're going to be reading from the Gospel of John, and it's John 15, 1 to 11. Just a bit of context behind the story. So this is at the Last Supper. So if you don't know what the Last Supper is, it's the last meal that Jesus has with his friends and with his followers right before he is betrayed and he is sent and imprisoned and sent to die on a cross. So this is what it reads. I am the true vine, and my Father is the gardener. He cuts off every branch in me that bears no fruit, while every branch that does bear fruit he prunes, so that it will be even more fruitful. You are already clean because of the word I have spoken to you. Remain in me, as I also remain in you. No branch can bear fruit by itself. It must remain in the vine. Neither can you bear fruit unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. If you remain in me and I in you, you will bear much fruit. Apart from me, you can do nothing. If you do not remain in me, you are like a branch that is thrown away and withers. Such branches are picked up and thrown into the fire and burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you. This is to my Father's glory, that you bear much fruit, showing yourselves to be my disciples. As the Father has loved me, so I have loved you. Now remain in my love. If you keep my commands, you will remain in my love, just as I have kept my Father's commands and remain in his love. I have told you this, so that my joy may be in you, and that your joy may be complete. Okay. So Jesus is using the description of a grapevine here. So grapes, they grew everywhere in the region where Jesus is in. It's something that everyone would have known about, something that everyone would have understood and related to. I'm going to use another picture today. Now, imagine your phone. Everyone has one. I use it mostly for connecting with my friends and my family and reading and taking pictures, and I love doing that. But there are so many amazing things that a phone can do. I feel like each day there's something new that I can learn that this phone can do. But most importantly, if it doesn't have battery, if it doesn't have power, then it doesn't work. It doesn't do anything. It's just a brick. So it does nothing else if it's not connected. Now, in the same way, if the vine is not connected to the rest of the plant, then it doesn't grow and it doesn't do the things that it was meant to do. Now, going back to the picture of a vine, it doesn't struggle, it doesn't try to be a vine, doesn't try to grow fruit. It's just what it does, it's what it was made to do. And in the same way, we don't need to struggle, we don't need to strive and work hard and force ourselves to do good deeds. But actually God is already at work in us and he's already using us. And it's something that we just get to be a part of. We don't have to work for it. Now, many of you might be feeling lost or a little bit aimless at the minute. You might not have any schoolwork or anything that you've been working towards to keep doing. And that might be the same for the next few months. But just be reminded through this verse today that God has got you. The verse isn't saying that maybe if you work super hard and you really try and you really force yourself to be fruitful, then something will grow. But actually he's saying that if we remain in him, then he will make us fruitful. Alternatively, you might be on the other end of the spectrum at the minute. Maybe you're filling your days with endless social media, Netflix, or even the new Google+. But actually God has given us each day, so let's not waste it. Use this time, find a new hobby or discover new gifts that God has given you. Or if your parents are currently working, if you've got younger siblings, or even if you don't, help out around the house. Find something to do that is good and helpful. You're a member of your family too, so get involved in whatever ways that you can. Now, there are a few things that really jumped out at me when reading these verses over the last few days. And there is so much that we can talk about. There's so much goodness in this verse, and I feel like we could do an entire series. But there's just a few things that we're going to really focus on today. Now, the first is this word remain. I counted, it comes up about 11 times in these 11 verses. So that's once per verse. Now, in Jesus' time, they learned through repetition. And so sometimes when you're reading the Bible, it might sound really repetitive and it might say the same things over and over again. And this is because this is how they learn. So things that are really key and really important are repeated. And so I think the fact that this word remain is repeated so many times means that it's something that we need to be paying attention to. Now, at other translations, it uses the word abide. So that's what we're going to talk about today, abiding and remaining in God. Now, we've got such an opportunity at the moment. We are stuck in our homes, we can't go out, we can't go to church anymore. So it's a real opportunity to learn into the practice of abiding and remaining in God. At the minute, we can't rely on just go to church and youth group to top us up and fill us up for the week. Our faith can't just be a tradition, something that we do once a week or twice a week. And so we need to know who God is, and we need to want him to be a part of our daily lives, not just when we go to church. And yes, we need those things. We need church, we need youth group, we need the community. That's how God created us. He created us to be in community. And in Hebrews 10 verse 25, it says, "Let's not give up meeting together, but encourage one another." And so that's why we're meeting online at the minute. We're having youth and we're having our Sunday talks and worship online as well. But it's not a new way that we're doing church. It's not how church is going to be from now on. This is just an alternative until we can meet together again. And so in this time, we can really dive in to our need to know God and to pursue him and to remain in his presence every day. So what does it mean to remain or abide? I looked it up and there's lots of different definitions, so I'm just going to list them off really quickly. So it's to not to depart, to continue to be present, to be held, kept continually, to continue to be, to not perish, to last, to endure, and to wait. That was a lot. So there's so much that this word means, and it holds so much importance in our lives, particularly as Christians. So how do we remain in God and in Jesus? We've already talked about bearing fruit and what that means. In Ephesians 2 verse 10 it says, "For we are God's handiwork, created in Christ Jesus to do good works, which God prepared for us in advance." So God has created us for a purpose, and when we remain in him, we get to live that out. And even if you don't know what the future is going to be like for you, if you don't know what you want to do with your life, if you feel like things are going to change because of coronavirus, remember that God is bigger than all of that. He has a purpose for your life, and a virus or our fears and anxieties aren't going to stop that. Now, it says that God is the gardener, and when he cuts things back and he prunes us, this can be a bit of a painful process, and maybe you feel like you are being pruned right now in this season, and it's difficult and it's painful. Now, God never promises that our lives as Christians are going to be easy, but it does make us stronger, and it's always for our good. Now, when God cuts something back, and when a plant is cut back, it's done to encourage new growth and a stronger growth. So find encouragement in that today, that when you feel like you're going through a bit of a painful process of being pruned, that it will make us stronger and it will bring new things for us. The second thing, the reason why we abide in God, is that it brings joy. Now, God cares about your joy. Jesus says, "These things I have told you so that my joy may be in you and that your joy may be complete." Now, last week we talked about finding things to be grateful for. Now, if you did this, Did you find that it increased your joy? I want to know. Let me know. And if you haven't joined in yet, I really encourage you to try it. Find some things that you are grateful for and see your joy increase each day. Now with Jesus, we get a joy and a complete joy. It's not just partial, it's not a little bit of joy, but it's a complete joy. And it's something that we won't find anywhere else. It's not something we can get from other things that this life brings. It is something that is only found in God and when we remain in Him. So, how do we abide? Again, we touched on this last week. We talked about keeping our eyes fixed on Jesus. So the way that we do this is we can worship. We have a church playlist. It is on Apple Music and Spotify, and I think some other places as well. I really encourage you to find that, listening along to it. It'll be most of the songs that we sing on a Sunday, and a few other songs mixed in. So put that on in the background, have that playing throughout your week. There are also various worship sessions happening online at the moment. I'm sure you can find them. There's loads out there. One that I've been following along to at the minute is the Wren Collective Worship. They've just been playing worship online, live, and it's been amazing to have loads of other people across the world and across the country joining in with that as well at the same time. Another way that we can abide in God is to pray. Now, prayer is just a fancy way of saying talk to God. It doesn't have to be big, long prayers. It's just talking to Him. And He listens and He cares and He wants to know what you have to say and how you're feeling and the things that you need at the minute. And finally, find something that stirs your heart towards God. Now, I used to go for walks. That's how I met with God, being out in nature. Now, I can't drive to a forest at the minute, so I'm trying to find other ways that I can really connect with God. And for me, this has been being out in the garden, growing something new. And God has just been really talking to me through nature and in the garden as well. And that's just been amazing. Now, for my husband, Sam, it's doing something with his hands. It's being creative and building something and making something. And that's how God connects with him and talks to him. So find something that really stirs your heart for God. Maybe it's creating something, maybe it's baking, maybe it's learning a musical instrument, whatever it is, find that thing that stirs your heart towards God and just listen and see what He has to say. It could be a feeling, it could be a sensation, it could be a picture that pops into your head. However it is, find something that helps you connect with God. Now, I'm just going to end today with a quote from a book. It's from a book called Practicing the Presence. It's a really short, small book. It's really easy to read. Now, it's it's some of the letters collected from a monk in the 17th century, but I feel like the things that you have to say, it doesn't age. It still works for us today. It's a really good book if you can find it and read it. I really encourage that. Now, this is what he says. He, talking of God, does not ask much of us, merely a thought of Him from time to time, a little act of adoration, sometimes to ask for grace, sometimes to offer Him your sufferings, at other times to thank Him for the graces past and present. He has bestowed on you in the midst of your troubles to take solace in Him as often as you can. Lift up your heart to Him during your meals and in company. The least little remembrance will always be the most pleasing to Him. One need not cry out very loudly. He is nearer than we think. So this week, I really just encourage you to find ways to be in the presence of God and to realise that He is nearer than we think.